We're in Server 2016, and I have launched the following VMs. I have 2012 going, I have Windows 8.1, I have Metasploitable. They're all running. And I have the enumeration tools here from Module 4 in Server 2016. I open this up, and I have installed these tools. Some of them just simply open, like NetBIOS Enumerator and SuperScan. So the first thing we're going to play with is SuperScan. It is a port scanner. It's also an enumerator. And we also saw this with another tool in the last module. I'm opening SuperScan right here, and I'm just going to run it. SuperScan version 4.1. Double click it, and it pops open. And so I'm going to scan the subnet range. And what I'm going to do is in the start IP, I'm going to type 192.168.75.1. Your subnet might be different, to 75.254, and I'm going to click this arrow to add it to the range. So click the little arrow here, and the range is here. And so now I am ready to actually run this. So I come down to the little play button, the little blue play button in the lower left, and I click. And we'll give it a moment to start the scanning, and we can see that it's banner grabbing here, and it's running. And I'm going to pause the video because it'll take a moment, and I'm going to come back as soon as it's done, and we'll see what the results are. All right, it's done. So let's see what we have. We can see the log if we expand this and we scroll up. We can see the log that it found 6 live hosts, and it found 192.168.75.1, and it found these ports were open for TCP and one for UDP. 75.2, don't know the host name, but it found these TCP and UDP ports open. 75.8, don't know the host name, but it found these ports open. 75.12, similarly, 16.131. So if we continue on and go to the Host and Service Discovery tab, let's click that. We can see that there is some host discovery, UDP scan, TCP scan. And these were the ports that were scanned for by default, and there are some timeout settings. You can change the ports as you please. We just accepted the default. In the scan options here, if we click this, we can see the speed of the scan and how many times we try to discover hosts or services, and how many times we try to do hostname lookups, and if we do banner grabbing techniques. If we go to tools here, we can see that there are a number of tools, like there's the hostname IP lookup. If we click this hostname IP lookup, now of course we haven't actually put in anything, so what we can do is we can try to resolve. We can see if we can put something in. Now, the hostname IP URL lookup depends in this case on searching DNS. So let's use something that is on the internet so that we are actually using that DNS. So I'm going to put in, say, www.certifiedhacker.com, and I'm going to click the hostname IP lookup. I'm going to click that. And it finds the IP address, the public IP address. The reason why it's not working on our own little subnet is because we're using just the public Google DNS server. We're not using an internal DNS server. We could also ping. So with this www.certifiedhacker.com here, let me ping it. And I can see that I'm pinging. I could try to traceroute using ICMP. Let me try to traceroute to that same location. And we'll see. Now, if we have any firewalls that disallow ICMP, this might not come up with any results. So yeah, we can see that I got as far as just getting out of the virtual machines, and then everything else, firewalls did not allow response. If I was a DNS server, I could try to zone transfer. And zone transfer just simply means get a copy from an authoritative DNS server of the zone. I could also try to get the HTTP header. Let me just click that and see. Okay, so I can see the HTTP head request. I could do a GET request, and the GET request simply means just give me what your default page is, and we can see it all in HTML. I could do a whois. and see if there's a who is here. So there is some who is information, not a whole lot. And I can continue on with, like, say, Aaron, which is the North America, or RIPE, which is Europe, or APNIC, which is Asia Pacific, etc. So here are some tools. To go to Windows Enumeration, let me click this tab. And with Windows Enumeration, let me, since I have discovered some hosts here in the original scan, let me go ahead and just take one of them, like 192.168.75.8. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to highlight and copy it. I'm going to go to Windows Enumeration. I'm going to put that address in here, and I'm going to enumerate. And it's going to try to get information, all of this information, like the NetBIOS name table. Can I get a null session? Null session simply means you log on to the IPC dollar inter-process communication process share with no username and no password. Going back to Windows NT 4.0, well, even earlier than that, machines would log into each other with no username and no password, so they could do things like trade browse lists, for network neighborhood, or do other NetBIOS related stuff. Null sessions are generally disallowed these days, but you can configure even Server 2016 to allow null sessions to have a little bit of fun. The older machines allow null sessions right off the bat, which allows us to enumerate a lot of NetBIOS stuff without any credentials at all. We're getting the MAC addresses, we're getting the workstation type, any users and groups, any RPC endpoint dumps, any account policies, shares, domains it belongs to, time of day, who's logged on, any drivers, any domains it trusts, and services and registry. So it's going through the whole thing and trying to find us stuff. And when I scroll through here, I see a variety of things. Now, to make this even more interesting, so I can see here that I have drivers. I can see that if I scroll up, do I have any users, groups? No users listed, no groups listed, so the NetBIOS didn't work so well. Let me try 75.12 and enumerate that. That is Server 2012. See what we can get out of that. And okay, services are popping up. I know you can't see them, but I can tell just really quickly. I see a whole bunch of services on Server 2012, their status. If I scroll up, so I can see, different services like IIS and server service, workstation, DHCP, DNS, whether they're running and what their names are. I can scroll up and I can see no one's logged on. I can see that its main domain controller is this. Of course, it is the domain controller. And I can see various drivers, which is sometimes useful because sometimes drivers will imply vulnerabilities, different types of drivers. Let me keep going up. Loads and loads of drivers. Oops, okay, not too far. I was able to get a null session to 192.168.95.12 IPC dollar, that inter-process communication share. So that allows null sessions. Yeah, great. That will give us opportunities down the road. And so I got some information there. What about Metasploitable, which I've got Metasploitable running. Let me just go back to scan, see if I can identify Metasploitable. Here's Metasploitable. Metasploitable 131 has all of these ports open. When you see things like 111, that's a Linux port. That is the Linux remote procedure call nmapper. It is the functional equivalent of TCP 135, which you only see on Microsoft. Like this one, you only see TCP 135 on Microsoft's. You only see 111s on Linux. But you will, if the Linux is running the Samba service, the SMB file and print service, you will see things like 139 and 445 open, which we expect to see on Microsoft machines as well. So I'm going to take this Metasploitable IP and I'm going to try to enumerate it. Let me just copy it. Let me go back to Windows Enumeration. Even though it's Linux, the fact that it's running the Samba service means that Windows Enumeration will get pretty far with it. Let me click Enumerate. And so yes, I can see loads of stuff because the the Samba service is responding just like if it was a Microsoft machine. So if we scroll back, we can see that there's a C drive, so to speak. It doesn't really have a C drive. It has services and shares. So it has a print dollar share, which is a hidden share. It has a temp share, an opt share, an IPC dollar, and an admin dollar, just the way Microsoft machines would have. It has a password and account policy, which we can see right here. Don't know that there are any groups or RPC endpoints. We can see all sorts of account policy information here. So we can see policy for various users, what their names are, and if they logged on, when they last logged on, information about them, are they enabled or disabled. We can scroll up and go see more. Too far. We can see that it has 35 users, that it is running LAN Manager Workstation and Server, which is basically the file and print service. It is a member server, no domain. It's not in a domain, or rather, it's not a domain controller. Its name is Metasploitable. And so we got lots of stuff out of Metasploitable because it's running the Samba service. And then, of course, we can click about, just get information about SuperScan. So that is enumerating NetBIOS information, all this stuff, using SuperScan.